This year, a Prince Albert family marked 8 years without answers about their daughter's disappearance. Happy Charles was last seen April 3, 2017 in Prince Albert, and there has been no new information about her whereabouts. Her family was joined by other MMIWG families, including Ashley Morin's, who has been missing since July 10, 2018. Charles's father, Carson Poitras, says as time passes without answers, he wants Prince Albert police to renew their efforts to find Happy.
And it's almost like we don't matter anymore. Happy doesn't matter more. Happy, they don't seem to think is a person, a human, a mother, a grandmother. They think of her as a number.
The federal election made national headlines, with all party leaders making stops in Saskatoon. When Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre held a press conference, APTN asked how his proposed three-strike approach to violent offenses would address overcrowding in corrections facilities.
The good news is we have very few criminals in Canada. The bad news is they do a tremendous amount of damage. The same 40 offenders had to be arrested 6,000 times in Vancouver in a year. So that means 150 arrests per offender per year. Why didn't we just leave them in jail? There would be 6,000 fewer crimes if they were just left in prison after they started doing the damage. That's what we're going to leave them in jail. We're going to end the crime. It's going to be the biggest crackdown on crime in Canadian history.
On election night, most of Saskatchewan remained Conservative blue, but one large area turned red. Buckley Belanger won the Desnethi-Missinippi Churchill River riding for the Liberals.
And it's a huge piece of land. There's so much wealth on that piece of land. And what we're trying to do is make sure we connect the issues and challenges of our community to the wealth of that land so we can forge a better path forward for our children and grandchildren.
Belanger was appointed Secretary of State for Rural Development. In Indigenous politics, Métis Nation Saskatchewan held its own election. Glenn McCallum was re-elected MNS president, though some elected officials were not allowed to be sworn in. Sherry McLennan and Wendy Gervais were barred from the swearing-in and from the provincial Métis Council meetings until they apologized to MNS CEO Richard Quintel.
And I have no problem apologizing when I make a mistake. I don't think Sherry does either. However, we're very well aware that we have done nothing wrong.
After public backlash, Gervais and McLennan finally took their oaths in September, but they are still barred from provincial Métis Council meetings. Several members of the public were also issued cease and desist letters over social media activity and barred from MNS events. A forensic audit was carried out by the federal government on the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations. The audit said more than $34 million in spending was unsupported, questionable, or ineligible. According to the federal government, more than $23 million of that was linked to COVID-19 funding. For their part, the FSIN said that they have never received a line-by-line audit and called the COVID-19 findings baseless, saying funds were used to protect elders, families, and children. Back in the justice system, a family seeking justice for over 5 years is nearing the end of their court process. Megan Gallagher was murdered in September 2020 in a garage in Saskatoon. Her remains were found in September 2022 on the South Saskatchewan River near the town of St. Louis. 9 people were charged in her death. Cheyenne Petitous and Summer Sky Henry received 7-year sentences for manslaughter. Robert Bobby Thomas pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with no parole for 18 years. Ernest Vernon Whitehead, Jessica Badger, and John Wayne Sanderson received sentences ranging from 18 months to 3 years for indignity to human remains. Charges against Thomas Sutherland for manslaughter and Robin John for unlawful confinement and aggravated assault were stayed. All of these proceedings were under a publication ban to protect fair trial rights. Roderick Sutherland, the only accused to go to jury trial, was convicted of manslaughter, unlawful confinement, and indignity to human remains in October. Sentencing submissions were heard December 19th. Roderick Sutherland will be sentenced on April 13th, 2026. Megan's father, Brian Gallagher, spoke outside the courthouse, expressing frustration with delays and the court system's handling of MMIWG cases.
And the reality is that if these things continue to happen and if they continue to get worse, it could be your child, your mother, your father, anybody. When people are able to manipulate the system to ways to get away with murder, it's just ridiculous.
Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.